What if I told you the voice in your head isn't yours? That the hesitation, the doubt, the second guessing, you didn't choose them. They were installed, programmed, downloaded into your mind like malware. And in this video, we are going to rip them out and replace them with a new identity. Listen to me carefully. That voice whispering you can't, you're not ready, what if you fail, that's not your authentic self speaking. That's the accumulated fear of every person who told you to be careful, every teacher who said you weren't good enough, every moment you tried and fell short. You've been carrying someone else's voice for decades. Their limitations, their fears, their small dreams disguised as your realistic expectations. But here's what I discovered in my years of studying the most successful men who ever lived: Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Lincoln. Not one of them listened to that voice. They didn't manage it. They didn't work around it. They killed it. And today, that voice dies in you too. I'm going to show you exactly how they did it. How they rewrote the software of their minds. How they installed an entirely new operating system that made success inevitable, not just possible. But first, you need to get angry. Furious. Because you've been robbed. The real you of the man who was born to build, to lead, to win, he's been buried under layers of other people's programming. And every day you delay taking back control is another day that fake voice steals from your destiny. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to perform surgery on your mind. We're going to cut out the infection of doubt and install something so powerful, so unshakable, that failure becomes impossible. Not because life gets easier, but because you become unstoppable. Hashtag unmasking the mental virus. You were born with doubt. No man is. Watch a child, he doesn't wonder if he can walk. He tries. He falls. He gets up. He doesn't ask permission to explore the world. He just moves. Doubt is a virus. It spreads through repetition, through exposure, through the accumulated no's and be carefuls, and that's not realistics of a world full of people who gave up on their own dreams. Your parents meant well when they told you to have a backup plan. Your teachers were trying to protect you when they said to be realistic. Your friends think they're being helpful when they point out all the ways you could fail. But every single one of those voices installed a program in your mind. Question yourself before you act. Prepare for failure. Safety is more important than success. And that program has been running in the background of your life ever since, making decisions for you, holding you back, keeping you small. Let me tell you about Andrew Carnegie. Born into nothing. Started as a telegraph operator making pennies. But he refused to install the program of limitation that surrounded him. While other immigrants accepted their place, Carnegie decided he would become the richest man in America. Impossible? His peers thought so. His family thought so. The entire world thought so. But Carnegie understood something most men never learn: the voice of limitation isn't truth. It's just programming. And programming can be rewritten. Every morning, Carnegie would stand in front of his mirror and declare his definite major purpose. Not whisper it. Not think it. Declare it. Out loud. With conviction. With the authority of a man giving orders to his own mind. I will become the wealthiest man in America through honest service and the development of steel. He repeated this every single day for decades. Not because he felt it was true, but because he decided it would become true through repetition. Henry Ford did the same thing. When his own engineers told him it was impossible to cast an 8-cylinder engine in one solid block, Ford didn't debate them. He didn't consider their expertise. He simply said, produce it anyway. Not once. Not twice. But every single time they came back with failure, Ford repeated the same command: produce it anyway. That's not stupidity. That's not arrogance. That's a man who refused to let other people's limitations become his reality. Thomas Edison failed over 10,000 times trying to create the electric light bulb. 10,000 times his mind could have accepted the program of defeat. 10,000 opportunities for doubt to take control. But Edison had installed a different program. When reporters asked him how he kept going after so many failures, he replied, "I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Do you see what he did there? He refused to let failure mean failure. He reprogrammed the meaning. Every failure became data. Every setback became progress. Every no became not yet. That voice in your head telling you to quit, to be realistic, to play it safe, that's not Edison's voice. That's not Carnegie's voice. That's not Ford's voice. And it's not your voice either. It's the collective fear of everyone who's settled. Everyone who gave up. Everyone who chose comfort over greatness. But today, we delete that program. Today, we install a new one. Hashtag identity is decided, not found. Here's the truth most men never understand. You don't discover who you are. You decide who you are. You don't wait to become confident. You decide that confidence will be your posture from this moment forward. You don't hope to one day become fearless. You decide to act despite fear until fear becomes irrelevant. You don't pray to stumble into your purpose. You declare your purpose and then become it through action. Identity is not found. It's forged. In the fire of decision. In the hammer blows of repetition. In the steel of commitment. Every great man I studied did this. They didn't wait for the world to tell them who they were. They told the world who they would become, and then they proved it through relentless action. Abraham Lincoln decided he would preserve the Union and end slavery, not because polls supported him, not because it felt safe, but because he chose that identity. I am the man who will hold this nation together. And because that decision was final, immovable, sacred fear couldn't break him. Charles Schwab decided he would build the greatest steel empire in history. Not because he had the most experience. Not because he had the most connections. But because he wrote that identity in his mind with iron, and then he lived it every single day until the world had no choice but to agree. This is what you must do now. You must write your identity in stone, not scribble it in sand. Who are you? Who have you decided to be? Not who you've been. Not who others expect you to be. Not who feels safe to be. Who you choose to be from this moment forward. Say it out loud right now. I am not a man of hesitation. I am a man of execution. Say it again. I do not drift between identities. I have chosen one and I walk in it. Don't whisper it. Command it. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond to suggestions. It responds to orders. And here's what will happen when you do this consistently, relentlessly, without compromise. Your posture will change. Your voice will change. Your decisions will change. Because the mind doesn't lead the body. They lead each other. When you walk like a king, your mind starts to think like a king. When you speak like a leader, your thoughts align with leadership. Carnegie understood this. Every morning before the world could speak to him, he spoke to himself. He declared his identity. He reinforced his purpose. He commanded his mind to obey his vision, not his circumstances. And you must do the same. Every single morning, before you check your phone, before you read the news, before you let the world tell you who you are, you tell yourself who you are. Write it down. Speak it out loud. Feel it in your chest. I am not a man who waits for permission. I am a man who acts on purpose. I am not a man who fears judgment. I am a man who creates value. I am not a man who settles. I am a man who builds. This isn't positive thinking. This is identity installation. This is how you rewrite the operating system of your mind. And once the new identity is installed, doubt becomes impossible. Not because you've eliminated fear, but because fear no longer matches who you are. The man who knows he was meant to lead doesn't hesitate to make decisions. The man who knows he was built to win doesn't entertain thoughts of failure. The man who has decided his identity doesn't need the world's permission to live it. So decide. Right now. In this moment. Who you are is not a mystery to be solved. It's a declaration to be made. And once you make it, everything changes. Hashtag burning the retreat. Now comes the hard part. The part that separates the pretenders from the kings. You must burn the retreat. Listen to me carefully. Movement without commitment is not progress. It's dabbling. It's keeping one foot in your future and one foot in your past. And no empire was ever built by a man who kept a backup plan for mediocrity. Let me tell you about Hernán Cortés. In 1519, he landed on the shores of Mexico with a small army to face an empire that vastly outnumbered him. And the first thing he did when he reached the shore? He burned the ships that brought them there. Not because he was reckless, but because he understood human nature better than most. When the mind believes there's a way out, it never fully commits to the way forward. The phrase burn the boats has become cliché, but it wasn't cliché for the man who lived it. It was survival. It was the difference between victory and retreat. And you must do the same thing in your life. Metaphorically. Mentally. Completely. What is your retreat? Be honest with yourself. Is it the job you keep as a safety net even though it crushes your soul? Is it the excuses you rehearse about why you can't start yet? Is it the voice you silence because you're afraid of what others might say? Is it the comfort zone you refuse to leave because change feels dangerous? These aren't strategies. These are shelters for fear. And as long as they exist, you will never walk with full power. Henry Ford didn't say, "We'll try this automobile idea, and if it doesn't work, we'll go back to making carriages." He staked everything. When he committed to the Model T, he shut down production of every other car his company was making against the advice of his board, against the fears of his peers. He simplified. He streamlined. He focused. And in doing so, he created a revolution in manufacturing. Why? Because there was no retreat. Ford didn't seek comfort. He sought completion. Thomas Edison had no plan B. When he set out to create a functioning light bulb, he didn't hedge his bets. He committed everything, his reputation, his resources, his future, to that single goal. Each of his 10,000 failures was made with the resolve of a man who had already sealed his fate. He once said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's not the voice of a man who left the door open to quit. That's the voice of a man who locked it, threw away the key, and set fire to the room behind him. Dale Carnegie, as a young immigrant with nothing but a job in a telegraph office and a mind full of ambition, made a decision early in his life. Poverty would not have the final word. He didn't pursue wealth as a wish. He pursued it as a necessity. Not for greed, but for impact. He devoted himself completely to mastery of industry, of management, of communication. When he committed to steal, he committed with everything. He wasn't dabbling. And because of that total commitment, he rose. You cannot act like you were meant to win if your energy is split between building and retreating. You must commit fully. And you must prove that commitment by eliminating the exits. It's easy to say, "I'm all in." It's another thing entirely to remove every other option. Abraham Lincoln understood this when he decided to preserve the Union. He knew the risks. He knew the cost. He knew that war would scar the nation. But he also knew that preserving the soul of America required conviction without loopholes. And so, with ink and blood, he wrote his stand into history. You must now do the same. Metaphorically and mentally. Burn the retreat. Let fear scream. Let doubt panic. Let the old self cry out in protest. But do not go back. Delete the maybe. Delete the someday. Delete the if this doesn't work, I'll. Those phrases are permission slips for failure. Say it out loud right now. There is no retreat. I have made my decision. And the door behind me is closed. Say it again. I move with finality. I act without escape routes. These words must not be spoken once. They must be repeated daily until your body forgets what it felt like to doubt. This isn't about drama. It's about discipline. Burning a bridge isn't loud. It isn't showy. It's the quiet decision you make before dawn that today, again, you will not run. And if you hold that line long enough, something incredible happens. Fear stops talking because it knows you're not listening anymore. Hashtag autosuggestion is a weapon. Now I'm going to teach you the most powerful technique I ever discovered. The same method Carnegie used to build his empire. The same system Edison used to light the world. The same process Ford used to revolutionize industry. It's called autosuggestion. And it's not what you think. This isn't about positive thinking. This isn't about hoping for the best. This is about the deliberate and systematic reprogramming of your subconscious mind through repetition so intense, so consistent, so emotionally charged that it becomes identity. Here's what most men don't understand. Your subconscious mind doesn't reason. It doesn't judge. It doesn't filter. It simply accepts whatever is repeated to it with emotion and acts on it as truth. And that's either your greatest threat or your greatest weapon. Every morning, Henry Ford would repeat to himself, "It will be done." Not, "I hope it works out." Not, "Maybe this will succeed." But, "It will be done." And he repeated it with such conviction, such certainty, such emotional intensity that his subconscious mind had no choice but to make it reality. Thomas Edison, after every failed experiment, would say the same thing. "This brings me one step closer to success." Not sometimes. Every time. Without exception. He was programming his mind to see failure as progress, setbacks as advancement, problems as puzzles to be solved rather than reasons to quit. Andrew Carnegie took this even further. He required every young man under his mentorship to write down their definite major purpose and read it aloud every morning and every night. Why aloud? Because the voice you speak becomes the voice you hear. And the voice you hear becomes the voice you believe. And what you believe shapes your world. But here's the mistake most men make. They speak carelessly to themselves. They allow doubt, hesitation, worry, and worst of all, sarcasm to run on repeat in their minds. And they wonder why their progress always stalls. Your subconscious mind doesn't understand humor. When you joke about being lazy or failing or being stuck, it hears those words as instructions. It installs them. It obeys them. And soon, you do too. So you must become ruthlessly disciplined about what you allow to repeat in your mind. Each morning, before the world gives you its version of reality, you must give yourself yours. Look yourself in the mirror and declare, "I act before fear has a voice. I do not drift. I do not delay. I am the kind of man who keeps his word, especially to himself." And again at night, just before sleep, when the mind is soft and the subconscious is open, you speak your aim. You speak your identity. You speak your next move. Why? Because the mind remembers what it hears last. This isn't motivational fluff. This is neurological reality. This is how the brain wires thought into habit, how habit becomes instinct, and how instinct becomes destiny. Let me give you the exact words I want you to repeat. Write these down. Speak them daily. Make them your mental ammunition. I do not explain my power. I execute it. My actions train my mind to believe. I am not waiting for motivation. I move with discipline. I do not need more time. I need more fire. I do not entertain doubt. I enforce belief. I do not delay. I dominate. Say these every morning with intensity. Repeat them every night with conviction. And here's what will happen. The inner voice that once wavered will harden. It will sharpen. It will begin to speak with clarity even when things feel uncertain. You will no longer talk yourself out of action. You will talk yourself into motion. You will no longer entertain excuses. You will interrupt them with new instructions. You will no longer doubt your identity. You will reinforce it with every breath. Charles Schwab was known throughout his career for his unmatched optimism and mental strength. But it didn't come from birth. It came from repetition. He had trained his mind to reframe failure, to redirect negativity, to focus on possibility rather than problems. And you must do the same. This is how you kill doubt. You don't wait for it to leave. You drown it in truth. You replace the old voice. You install a new one. And once the subconscious accepts that new voice is dominant, doubt will knock on your door and your mind won't even hear it because the inner voice is too focused, too decisive, too trained to look backward. Make this your ritual. Not just once, but every single day. Because repetition is how we become. Hashtag faith versus feeling. There comes a moment in every man's life where he must choose. Will I follow how I feel, or will I follow what I've decided? Most men, without knowing it, live under the rule of emotion. They act when it feels good. They pause when it feels hard. They speak when they're confident. They hide when they're uncertain. And they wonder why their life never becomes what it was meant to be. But the builders, the doers, the producers, the titans of history, they live by a different compass. They move by faith. Let me be clear about what I mean by faith. Faith is not some mystical energy floating in the ether. Faith is a mental attitude, a muscle, a discipline. Faith is built like a wall, brick by brick, through repetition, decision, and the refusal to waver. And most importantly, faith is a choice. You do not need a reason to believe. You choose to believe, and the reason will follow. Henry Ford embodied this principle completely. He was told repeatedly by engineers, financiers, and supposed experts that his ideas were impossible. That the public wouldn't want a car. That an 8-cylinder engine couldn't be built in one block. And yet, he replied every time with the same simple command, build it anyway. Why? Because his belief wasn't based on the external world. It was born inside him. He had installed faith through repetition, through forward motion, through refusing to entertain contradiction. Ford didn't always feel strong. But he always acted like he was. That's the key. You do not need to feel the faith. You need to move like it's already there. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times on his journey to create the electric light. But he was never broken. Why? Because he had already decided that success was inevitable. And once that decision was installed, he no longer needed external validation. Each failure wasn't a sign to stop. It was evidence that progress was being made. That's what faith looks like. Not emotion, but identity backed by action. Most men confuse emotion with guidance. They think that if something feels heavy, it's a sign they should stop. If it feels uncertain, they assume it's the wrong path. But listen to me now, discomfort is not a red light. It is the toll you pay to walk the road of greatness. Abraham Lincoln knew this. He was elected president during a time when the nation was fracturing. His choices would determine not only the fate of the United States, but the fate of human freedom itself. His cabinet was divided. The nation was at war. The voices around him grew louder and louder with doubt. But Lincoln did not flinch. He wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, not because he felt supported, but because he believed in the mission. He moved on faith, not emotion. And that's what made him great. Emotion may feel real, but it lies often. It speaks in the language of the past. It echoes your old habits, your old identity, your old doubts. But faith speaks from the future. Faith speaks from the man you decided to become, not the man you used to be. So I ask you now, who is leading your life? Is it the man who acts on fire, on vision, on purpose? Or is it the man who waits until he feels good to make a move? You must make the decision today. I lead from faith, not from feeling. That means you show up even when you're tired. You speak truth even when your voice shakes. You follow through even when the results haven't arrived yet. Why? Because faith is not about evidence. It is about conviction. Every morning, declare your beliefs out loud. Not what you feel, but what you choose to believe. I act before I feel ready. I am not a slave to emotion. I command emotion. I walk by faith because the man I am becoming is already real. Then move immediately. Without debate. Without negotiation. You build faith not by thinking about it, but by acting as if it were already yours. Yes, you will feel resistance. Yes, the old thoughts will rise. But they are ghosts. You do not negotiate with ghosts. You replace them with fire. Charles Schwab used the same process when building the foundations of U.S. Steel. He wasn't always certain of the outcome, but he carried himself with certainty. He knew that people don't follow emotion. They follow conviction. And the only way to carry conviction is to practice it daily. So train yourself to move without needing to feel perfect. Say this now: I do not trust the voice of emotion. I trust the voice of purpose. I do not wait to feel powerful. I act until I am powerful. I lead myself. I do not follow the wind. The man who leads from emotion will always be led by fear. But the man who leads with faith becomes unshakable. He becomes unstoppable. He becomes inevitable. Hashtag the final push, kill the old self. We are now at the moment of truth. The moment where the old you must die so the new you can be born. This is not metaphor. This is necessity. That voice in your head, the one that hesitates, that questions, that plays small, it must be silenced forever. Not managed. Not negotiated with. Killed. You are no longer allowed to be the man who doubts. He is gone. Buried. We do not negotiate with his voice. We do not make room for his excuses. We do not check in on him when times get hard. He had his turn, and he wasted it. Now it's your turn. And the man you've chosen to become walks differently. He doesn't need to feel ready, he moves because he said he would. He doesn't need to see the full plan, he trusts the law of motion. He doesn't fear failure because his identity is rooted in action, not outcome. Abraham Lincoln understood this completely. The man who held together a torn nation did not live without fear. He was ridiculed, hated, attacked. He buried his own child during his presidency. He led a country through its darkest hour. And yet he chose belief every single day. He repeated his purpose in silence. He walked alone through the White House corridors at night, reaffirming his mission, not with certainty in outcome, but with certainty in identity. He was the man to carry this burden. He had to be. Dale Carnegie did the same. Born into nothing, standing in a world run by titans and giants, he had no pedigree, no special connections. But he carried one advantage: definiteness of purpose. And with it, he drowned doubt in repetition. He wrote and spoke his chief aim daily until the thought of failure simply didn't belong in his mental atmosphere anymore. That's not arrogance. That's mental discipline. That's how a boy from a telegraph office became the richest man in the world. Henry Ford faced endless waves of opposition, from the press, from engineers, from the government. But none of their doubt ever entered his system. Why? Because his internal repetition was louder than their external noise. He told himself what was possible over and over again until that belief hardened into steel. And that steel built empires. You are not different. The only thing separating you from those men is what you allow to repeat inside your own mind. Doubt is not real. It is a shadow. A recording. A loop playing on repeat in a man who forgot to change the track. So you must now overwrite it. Not with positivity. Not with hope. But with identity. Speak this aloud with me now. I do not argue with doubt. I replace it. I do not let fear speak twice. I silence it with action. I do not shrink. I do not flinch. I do not rehearse weakness. Say it louder, I do not live in hesitation. I move in fire. My belief is louder than my fear. My repetition is my shield. My identity is my weapon. Let this next line burn into your chest. You are no longer allowed to be the man who doubts. He is gone. Buried. We do not negotiate with his voice. The man you've chosen to become, he walks like victory is inevitable. He speaks like success is assured. He acts like greatness is his birthright. Not because he's delusional, but because he's decided. And decision, backed by action, becomes destiny. But understand this, doubt will not die gently. It is an addiction, and it will fight for its life. It will whisper again in the quiet hours, in the moments of fatigue, in the pauses between progress. And when it does, you do not engage. You return to your script. You return to your command. You return to the truth you are now installing. I do not need more time. I need more fire. I do not entertain doubt. I enforce belief. I do not delay. I dominate. Let your new identity be sealed through repetition, through daily decision, through the refusal to let the old voice breathe. This is your moment, not just to hear this speech, but to repeat it. Every single day. Until it becomes your default. Until your subconscious no longer recognizes the old you. Until doubt doesn't know where to find you anymore. Because the man who wins doesn't need 1,000 answers. He just needs to know who he is and walk like it's already done. So walk. And don't look back. The man you used to be, he's not coming with you. Let him die in silence. And let the man of fire rise in his place. Hashtag the command. This is not the end of the speech. This is the beginning of your new life. But it only begins if you make it law. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you read the news, before you let the world tell you who you are, you will play this again. You will listen to these words. You will speak these commands. And the next day. And the next. And the next. Until the voice of doubt doesn't even know where to find you anymore. Until the man who hesitates is a stranger you no longer recognize. Until acting with power, speaking with conviction, and moving with purpose becomes as natural as breathing. This is not motivation. This is installation. This is the systematic replacement of the weak voice with the voice of fire. Your old self dies here. Your new self is born in the repetition of these truths. So make this your ritual. Make this your religion. Make this your revolution. The man you were meant to be is waiting. He's been waiting your entire life. Stop making him wait. Rise.